Hi, I'm Dr. George Yancey. Let's shatter some paradigms. And the paradigm I want to share today is Jon Stewart's gospel choir. Now, this is kind of special. I'm sort of doing a video based on a current event, and most of my videos have not been that way. But this sort of came up, and I just could not resist. So I want to talk about what happened a few days ago with Jon Stewart. You may or may not have heard this, and before I get into this, let me just say that, by and large, for a stand-up comedian, I've enjoyed Jon Stewart. He's more of the left, but he's willing to critique the left, which makes me kind of respect him up until about now. So, as you might know, Stephen Colbert is being let go from his show, and The Daily Show is going to be no more in about a year. Okay, that's not a big issue for me. If it is for you, okay, that's fine. It's, he'll be all right. Jon Stewart evidently does not like this very, very much. And one of the ways he showed he didn't like this at the end of his show was he brought out a gospel choir and sung to the tune of the gospel choir, I assume to CBS, F yourself. I won't say the actual word. You all know what word I'm using. Over and over again. And I was offended. Now, to understand why I was offended, let me just talk a little bit about African American and the church. During the days in slavery, during Jim Crowism, the black church has been a bulwark of support. And anyone who studies African American history and does not tell you that, they're either lying or they're very deeply mistaken. So regardless of the fact, and I am a Christian, and I don't go to a black church currently. I grew up a lot in the black church. But even if you're not a Christian, the black church was a source, a location of our culture. And to see the black gospel choir, and then this white guy come in saying, F yourself, attaching that to the significance, the morality of the black church, to me is simply offensive. Now, those of you who've seen some of my other videos know that I'm not a highly emotional person. I don't tend to rant. I don't tend to rave. I tend to lay out the facts, and there it is. This is a little bit different because I do feel emotionally offended by what he did. But let's dive a little bit deeper into it. It's not just about my emotions. As you probably know, one of the things that we hear about when we talk about racial issues is the notion of cultural appropriation. And this is a notion on how whites sometimes take the culture of people of color and they appropriate for their own uses. Now, the way this is defined, and I don't agree with this way of definition, is that this is only done by majority group to minority group. So if Stewart was to take a white Southern Baptist choir and to do F yourself, technically that would not be cultural appropriation. I would find it immoral and wrong and maybe be as offended as a Christian. But it's not technically cultural appropriation. Taking the products of African American culture, which is our worship service, and fashioning it for your own needs, desires, causes, that's cultural appropriation. I see no way out of that for Jon Stewart. That is basically what he did. And why is he getting away with it? Why are certain entities that would be the first to say cultural appropriation if there was some white conservative entertainer doing something similar? Because he has the right cause. You see, here's the problem. As I talk about white progressives, a question I have, and I want to be very careful because it's very difficult to assess motives, to assess intentions to people. I go look at their actions. But I do wonder, do they really believe what they say they believe? Do they really fight for people of color? Or is all they really want is for people of color to be allies for the causes that they want? Do they respect us? You know, I posted about a couple of weeks ago of a white progressive who was stopping a black woman from going to work because his cause was more important than her needs. And I can't help but feel that this is another great example of how, at least sometimes, and I want to be careful, I don't want to say all white progressives are this way. That's not fair. But how sometimes white progressives say, my cause is so important that I can misuse your culture, African American man, African American woman, African American Christian, for my cause. And that makes me wonder how important is the causes that we people of color care about. So Jon Stewart's little game here, I think, kind of exposes that sometimes it's not that important to them. Sometimes the causes of African Americans, our culture, our values, are secondary to the desires, the causes, in this case, the firing of another TV comedian, to the causes of white progressives. And this is one of the reasons why I, as an African American, may work with white progressives on certain issues, but oftentimes I don't trust them. What does Jon Stewart need to do? I'll tell you from my opinion what he needs to do. I think he needs to apologize. I think he needs to go and say, you know, I was mad at what was happening with Stephen Colbert, and, you know, I decided this was a good way to illustrate it, and I did not think about the cultures I was trampling on. And so I am sorry. Now, as a Christian, I'll accept that apology. But what he did, I'm not going to say is unforgivable, but until he apologizes, I can't see him in the same light any longer. He's not going to be a comedian I'm going to listen to at any stretch. His points make no points with me. I don't care about Stephen Colbert. Okay? And what he did made me care even less. That may not be the right way to go about it, but it is how I feel. And I think given our history, our Black history, that's appropriate. Once again, I don't think cultural appropriation should be limited to just minority cultures. I think that you can dispute other cultures, you can mock other cultures, and that's not right, that's unfair. And I think the way minority is defined oftentimes allows you to attack some cultures unfairly. But since that's the way it's defined, why is this not cultural appropriation? Why is he not apologizing? Why is there not pressure from other progressives, white progressives? Where are my progressives of color? To show this is wrong. And we should not allow this to happen again without consequences, without pressure. Does this share some paradigms? Paradigms about cultural appropriation and how we think that's only conservatives who engage in cultural appropriation. And in this case, that's clearly not the case. Well, I hope you think about it. You know, if this somehow gets to the ears of Jon Stewart and it helps him to think about it, that'd be great. I'm not optimistic, but if it does, that'd be great. But I think we have to think carefully about white progressives and how seriously they take the issues of people of color. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. If you agree and you like this sort of content, then leave a comment, leave a like, consider subscribing if you want to hear more content. If you disagree, tell me why. That's fine. Tell me why. And once again, I hope you come back. We can shatter some more paradigms.